URC quarterfinal number 4, folks. Leinster hosting the Lions. That is a bit of a drubbing. 59 points to 10. James Lowe. I didn't think he was going to get there because everybody else was scoring, but he gets 2 at the end to break Leinster's all-time try-scoring record. So big congrats to him. Congrats to Leinster of going through to the next round and not looking like they were, affected by a Champions Cup hangover or anything. The Lions, I mean, that sucks for you. But you made the playoffs for the first time in your URC history, so you got to be chuffed with that. And fingers crossed, kind of like Connacht, maybe you're on to bigger and brighter things in future seasons. We'll go through some of the key events and stats, but sometimes in games where it's this lopsided, there's kind of less to say than more. I will say that I felt like Leinster early on, like when it got to 14-5, like they'd blown a lot of chances. They were not as clinical as they might need to be in a tighter game, put it that way. Like Leinster, for some reason, I guess because they're a top team, always get extra critique put on them for any kind of win. But just genuinely, for a while, they had a heap of chances and were not taking them. They obviously took them by the end of the game. And Prendergast has got a ripper of a pass, doesn't he? Just seeing him rip those passes. He scored one of his own, which is unusual because he's not really a try-scoring 10. But yeah, seeing him shift the ball around the park was also very, very easy on the eye. We never really got to see the Lions of this URC season going. Like, the Lions have played some offload and crazy rugby, but generally it's been down in South Africa, hasn't it? So we didn't get to see the Lions play that game, and Leinster didn't really allow them to play that game. Leinster got the first try. It was through Sheehan. It was on the back of a whole bunch of pressure. Keenan with an initial line break. You had Rico playing halfback, Jimmy O'Brien, and then to Sheehan for the first try, 7 points to 0. And it probably should have been 2. Not too long later, you had Rico, Prendergast, Lowe, all combining. Jimmy O'Brien managed to get himself held up in a position where they probably should have scored, but did not make a difference because Rico to Prendergast to Keenan a minute later anyway. So 14 points to 0. This is looking like it's going to be an absolute drubbing. And it will be, but like I said, there was a bit of stuttering. Like the Lions scrum managed to win a penalty on 17 minutes. It's like, well, if there's a way for the Lions back into this game, maybe it's on the back of that scrum. And Leinster blowing some chances. Like Lowe had a pretty poor knock on. Keenan had a pretty poor knock on. Like they were knocking on the door and not taking the chances. And then when the Lions got finally, I think it was their first 22 entry of the match on 34 minutes, Clarkson kind of flipped one of the Lions players over, kind of dropped him on his head. It wasn't a good look. He rightly gets yellow carded for it. There wasn't like, he didn't smash him into the ground. That's why I think it stays yellow. They did say it was low danger, but it's not a very good look. But he gets yellow carded. Kind of opens the door a little bit for the Lions, right? They've held out through all these minutes of Leinster pressure to be only 2 scores down, which in Dublin is still a long way away. But yeah, 14 against 15. They get the maul going. It doesn't really work, but then Van Wyk is able to kind of burrow over from close range. Misconversion, but 14-5. 14-5 is not an insurmountable lead by any means. But maybe that score seemed to fire the Leinster guys up because when was the try? 35 minutes? James Ryan gets one only minutes later. Like Leinster had the exact right reaction that you would want after seemingly having blown so many chances and then conceded a try. They didn't want to leave that door open for the Lions. So they slammed it back firmly shut, even with 14 men. Prendergast with a half break, which was nice to see again. I don't usually see that as part of his game. McCarthy with a huge carry. He was immense all over the park, tackling and on the ball carry. Sheehan went close, and then wide ball to James Ryan, who's just kind of able to flop over. It's just relentless pressure from Leinster. 21-5 at halftime. Probably game over, but it's not. It doesn't look like it's going to go 59-10 at that mark, does it? Like the possession's 56% Leinster, the territory's 63% Leinster, line breaks is 3-zip, defenders beaten's 13-6. Everything is largely looking pretty peachy for Leinster. 22 entries, is 5-2. They've scored 3 tries, which is not a bad return for their 22 entries. So, yeah, it's looking relatively comfortable. And then 14-man Leinster still keep turning the screws, which again I think will be, it'll be promising heading into the semi-finals. Doris with a big line break. He probably should have passed it to Keaton, but he kept carrying, got tackled. They got wide ball to Rico, who flicked it out to Scott Penny. So tries either side of halftime for Leinster. 26 points to 5. At that point, it's game over, isn't it? And then Prendergast gets his try, which is going to be a nice one for Leinster after giving away an intercept last week. Prendergast got one for Leinster. He was almost run down. Like, he had a big head start. He put the hammer down, but he had the presence of mind to go for a little bit of a weave at the end of his run to just elude the Lions tackler. But yeah, it was Deegan's tackle, I think, that initially bobbled the ball kind of loose from Chris Smith to allow Prendergast the intercept. So 33-5. It is starting to look pretty messy for the Lions. Kewan Horn gets a yellow card. Doesn't make matters any better for the Lions with a one-handed intercept. It's risky. It's risky. So he gets punished for it, and Leinster punish straight away. Gus McCarthy straight off the bench. Maul time, 40 points to 5. Now it is getting... this could get kind of... Is it already embarrassing for a quarterfinal to be 40 points to 5 down? Fun fact, get his second, which was at least, something for the Lions fans to cheer about. They kept panning the camera out. I don't really remember seeing a heck of a lot of Lions fans there, to be fair. But, yeah, the crowd didn't initially like the grounding for Fun Fake's second, but it was grounded. He kind of grounded it before he bobbled it loose. A good call on the officials for that one. Then the crowd, once they really, really slowed it down, the crowd stopped booing. At live speed, it did look a bit sketchy, but 40 points to 10. But Leinster just kept going, which is, again, I think, going to fill them with a bit of confidence going ahead into the next round. They kept wanting James Lowe to score, you feel like, but Jimmy O'Brien got one. Prendergast with another ripper pass, 47 points to 10. And then James Lowe finally got it on 67 minutes. They did have to work for it a little bit, but you got to wonder if maybe they knew it was coming because they had a line-out set play. Mauler shifted through the hands of the backs. Jimmy O'Brien had just scored, seemed a little bit guilty to have scored the previous try and not given it to James Lowe, who was not far away from him. But yeah, he gives the long ball out to Lowe, who's able to fend his way over. 54 points to 10. All the Leinster guys gather around there, clearly absolutely chuffed for him. That's a real meaningful moment. And he gets a second. After the Lions had been denied not too long earlier, James Lowe gets a second right on full time. Great handling again from the backs. Prendergast with another ripper pass. 59 points to 10. She is an absolute hiding. 9 tries to 2, 60% territory, 61% possession. The Lions line-out was well disrupted by Leinster. 80% for the Lions, 88 for Leinster. Leinster would still like that to be a bit higher, but it's the better of the two. 5 turnovers, 1 to the Lions, 2. 8 line breaks to the Lions, 2. Defenders beaten 22-12. Every stat you want is basically very pretty reading for Leinster. James Lowe, 13 carries. Joe McCarthy, 12 carries. Both these guys stood up. I mean, Joe McCarthy had 5 defenders beaten. He was just a man possessed, wasn't he? Doris, 15 tackles. Landsberg had 18 for the Lions. But like I said, sadly, we didn't really get to see the Lions play their game. We know the Lions have got it in them, but we just didn't really get to see it in this game. It was Leinster just in control from start to finish. We will see how things go in the semi-finals. Leinster will be hosting the Stormers. Glasgow will be hosting the Bulls, so it should be pretty interesting times. I still think the Connacht semi-final against Glasgow is the quarterfinal to watch of the 4, because, I mean, there's 3 big hidings there, aren't there? I haven't seen the 2 games played in South Africa just yet, but I've seen the results. So, yeah, hopefully the semis are more arm wrestling. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.